Welcome to episode 7 of Cooncast. My name's Alex Byer, and this is in memory of Claire. She died June 15th at around 11 p.m. That Wednesday, she was being extremely grumpy, and she had been for the past 2 days. That's the second day in a row that she was being extremely grumpy. And so I put her down because I was like, I'll let her unwind because I wanted her to just get a quick nap in before I took her into the bathroom to go potty before actually putting her down for the night. So, and in that hour period, I guess she had a seizure, which I thought was just her being playful. And I tried resuscitating her, but it just was useless at that point because apparently she might have, I didn't know how long she was dead for by that time. So I buried her. Well, I didn't bury her because the ground was too hard and I live in a condo unit, so there's no place to really bury her. So I did the next best thing I could. I made a grave marker and I put her in the forest. I found a tree that got hit by lightning and there's like a nice little groove in it, and I placed her there. Okay, I'm going to do a lot of reading off of the sheet now. So, as I said, the past 2 days she's been super grumpy. I wrote a lot of stuff down because there's a lot to cover in this episode as a final Claire specific episode. I'll do another episode kind of Claire themed based on what I learned later next week. But this one's just covering Claire and what I think happened. So, past 2 days, she's been super grumpy. As I said, I just mistook it for developmental issues relating to her age and the kind of animal she was. She clawed the heck out of my hands, which she's gotten pissy with me before, so I wasn't too unfamiliar with a claw here or there, but this was the worst that she's done. I don't know if you can see that. The stupid camera. There we go. I just hate that they flip everything around so you can't properly show off the camera. It really screws with the brain. Anyways, and also earlier this week, she did something that she hasn't ever done before, even if it was in her sleep. So normally what I would do is I would play with her in bed with me because it's easy to keep track of her, and usually throw the cover over her and 20 minutes later she's passed out just resting. So that's why I liked doing that. And this week, she decided to give me her belly, which she's never done before. It's like, oh, cool, she's warming up to me, and she's being submissive. Because normally what would happen is she would sleep on her back, and I would start petting her belly, and then she would quickly turn over. But this time, she was very docile and was accepting me petting her belly. So I was happy with that behavior. So that pretty much sums up this week. What could have caused it? I don't know. There's so many variables. It's hard to place a blame on any one thing. It was a huge mixture of gross incompetence and inexperience on my part. It was just a huge thing. I'm going to have to read off this list over here because, as I said, it's a lot of stuff to cover. So let's go back into the history of issues. So, day one, I get her, and that night, she aspirates. I panic and don't catch it, and I still feed her, which is dumb on my part in hindsight and with the information I have now. But the aspiration got so bad that that night she was spitting up some blood, and it did some actual damage to the lungs. Even if it was minor, I don't think she ever fully recovered. And the last vet visit said that the lungs got worse, yet her breathing sounded better, less impeded. You know what I mean? Um, so I I was like, okay, lungs look cloudier, but the breathing sounds less crackly. So I took the good with the bad, and I was being optimistic. Then there was a whole pooping issue that we were having because I started out mixing the formula too thick, even though I followed the bag. At first, I mixed it by weight, meaning if I put a pound of formula on the scale, I did a pound of water. Now, if you know how much a gallon is, about 8 pounds. A gallon of water is about 8 pounds. So, I don't know. I'd have to do the math, and I'm not in a math mood right now. So let's see. I guess so. That's 2 cups of water per pound. If my math is correct, I think it is. It's usually pretty solid. Yeah. So it's about 2 cups per pound, and a pound of formula is a lot since it's powder. So, and it becoming a pudding, which at that point I was like, okay, so that's not right. And I didn't do the whole pound all at once, but I learned that you can't do dry weight. You have to do liquid ounces, liquid, milliliters and whatnot. So I tried again, and I did it by what a cup of powder was to 2 cups of water. And apparently that was still too thick. What I recommend for first time puppy kittens, or, well, if you're doing a puppy or kitten, you can just buy the KMR and the S Black in bottle and can form. I'm sorry if the squeakiness comes through the mic. But the KMR and S Black in the can is a great indicator of the consistency the formula should be. The issue I was having with the formula was that it was coating the bottle instead of sliding off the sides of the bottle. And that was the issue. It was just, it got too thick. And that was happening a while. And for whatever reason, ever since I got her, she just wouldn't poop. Though, I think the first day I could attribute to new area shock, or, just being in a new environment and the shock of that. In the breeder's defense, they did offer to show me how to feed her over the phone. They were like, do you need a demonstration on how to feed her? And I turned it down since I thought I remembered how to when I fed the raccoons and the wolves about 6 years before. Apparently I didn't. But also, I think I know the wolves weren't older, but I think the raccoons were about 7 or 8 weeks when we got them. Sorry, my neck is itching. So I think they were older and more mature and they could handle the bottle better. So what else happened? A lot of stuff. It was a lot of first time pet owner errors, and I chose a animal that someone as inexperienced as I was should not have had in hindsight. I don't recommend it as a first pet. I don't really I'll get into that in another episode because this isn't the episode for that. Sorry, it's just I just itch. Um so what else? Then during the enema stage, I got too rough with the wiping and I caused a slight fissure, which is it's like a paper cut near the butthole. Is the medical definition of it. Um, so I think the pain from that was interfering with her ability to judge when the poop was fully out of her body. So I think that was the issue. There's just a bunch of pooping issues. It was too hard. It was never too wet. Then there's a mucus phase and so on and so forth. So forth. Then she had some accidents around the house. She fell off the counter on the first day, and that caused some minor internal bruising and a air pocket to develop between the skin and the I guess there's like a sheath or something in front of like the whole stomach area. I don't know. There was an air pocket, a very minor air pocket in between those two. And it might have caused the heart to enlarge. Um, so, and there were a lot of falls here and there. But she always sprung back from them as if nothing happened, so I didn't worry too much about it. She never cried from her other falls. She didn't cry from the fall off the counter either. And she was wrapped up in a towel, so I didn't think that was too bad of a fall because I thought the towel would absorb most of it. But it did do damage, and I think that with aspiration and the problems I'm going to list further on led to just being a perfect storm of awfulness for her, sadly. And during play and other times, I was kind of rough with her. Like, while coaxing poop out of her, I think I might have been too rough during the intestinal massaging. Not on purpose, it's hard to gauge how much pressure you can put on something that size, And then when I was trying to clear her lungs out during an aspiration fit, might have been too rough. I don't know. What else? Then there were some weird issues with the breeder that was kind of problematic in hindsight. Like, they were very defensive when I asked about Claire's medical history. Defensive and dismissive. Like, they said she was perfectly fine when she left. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. I also don't remember them ever telling me that the gender had changed. That they switched a female raccoon for the male raccoon I was supposed to get. You would remember something like that. Because it's such a huge change. I mean, it's not really. Or is it? Because when I was doing my research and when I was talking to people online, everyone seemed to have a consensus, the same opinion that male raccoons are more docile than female raccoons. And everyone pretty much told me to make sure you get a male for the first time. and maybe I don't I don't know. Maybe the aggression was just part of her sex also. I don't know. There's just so much unknown, and now you're doing the hindsight, hypotheticals, what ifs. Could it be this? It's all speculation now. Um, so they switched genders on me, and then through Instagram, I later find out that the lady who bought her raccoon from the same breeder about 6 days later got a male raccoon, which means that they had that male raccoon in the waiting and gave me a female raccoon. And as I said, I don't remember them ever telling me that they switched genders on me, because that's something you don't forget, and especially since last year they pulled that with me and I backed out of the deal because one, they kind of blindsided me with the date. This time I was more prepared for her, and I expected her to come either May or June. But yeah. So what else? So when I was there, even though I didn't ask to have a feeding demonstration, I did have the foresight and the frame of mind. I might be using the wrong words. I'm sorry. Language isn't my strongest suit. I had the mindset to ask them to get a look at the formula just so I could gauge the consistency. That's an extremely benign question to ask. Yet they were very weirdly defensive and very rude about refusing to show me their formula mixture, which again, it's such an innocent question, and it is a reasonable question, in my opinion. So that was weird. So where they did the sale was inside their garage. Now, inside their garage, there's about 20 or so cages that they kept the animals stacked about 2 to 3 cages high on top of each other. And all the cages are the same size, which for a raccoon was fine. I can't give you a measurement, but okay, this is going to be a crap measurement because I'm not good at estimating spaces. But I would say, I'm trying to look for a frame of reference. I don't know. About 2 feet cubed? Yeah, about 2 feet cubed. We'll say maybe a little smaller. Maybe one side was like 1/2 foot, then 2 feet by 2 feet. So we'll say 2 feet cubed, which is kind of a small cage. I'm trying, or was it like the size of a milk crate? I don't remember. As I said, I really suck at estimating anything. Distance, time, anything that's I don't know, on a scale and not binary. I'm bad at it. Like, I can't measure temperature or whatever. That's why I had to buy a little infrared thermometer. Just make sure the formula wasn't too hot. Which I totally recommend because they're only like $15. Sorry. So yeah, in the garage, so you've got these arguably small cages housing both raccoons and fox kits, and the fox kits are about 2 to 3 times the size of a raccoon kit at the same age. So, as I said, it wasn't great for the raccoon, but it definitely wasn't great for the foxes to be in that small of a cage. Um, I feel like the raccoon mother who conceived Claire was a little too old, but maybe not when you're breeding in captivity. But I thought in the wild, 3 years old was the equivalent of a 40-year-old woman giving birth. Like there's that risk that the babies might have developmental issues, and it's just not wise. Apparently, all the raccoons had 6 kids then. If that's the case, and they only sell the raccoons at about 4 to 5 weeks, and I got mine at the 5 week mark, then how did I not get a male? You're telling me a raccoon had nothing but females, and you sold out on, and they had 6 kids, and they had nothing but females, or you sold out on male raccoons, even though I was one of the first people to call and order a gray, which I knew would be the less popular of the raccoons you offer, since they offered exotic colors like black, blonde, and red. So that is a little suspicious too. Now, on the medical side, there was even some shenanigans going on. But sadly, I didn't have much choice in vets, especially because you need a special license to take in and care for a raccoon. It's a wildlife vet license. I don't know the technical name, but it's a special and separate license from your typical pet license. So the medicine which I was giving her daily and stored correctly in the fridge after each use for the medicines that needed to be stored in the fridge, like the antibiotics and the NSAID. I was told that the antibiotics had usually about a 2 week shelf life, yet I couldn't see the doctor within the first. Let me back up because I missaid that. So the antibiotics I found during the second visit have a 2 week shelf life. Well, that was not information that was given to me the first time she gave me the antibiotics. So I couldn't see the vet due to financial restrictions within the 2 week time frame, and I had pushed it up to about a month later, sadly. But I was like, I have about a month and a half worth of, or more than a month worth of antibiotics in this bottle, and by the next visit, I still had about almost half the bottle left, and I was making sure I gave her the right amount. And I gave her it twice a day like I was supposed to. So on and so forth. I did everything I was supposed to, and yet I still had a lot of antibiotics left. Though they cut the NSAID a lot closer to the actual amount it should have been, and just barely lasted me the 4 weeks. So I don't know what was going on with the antibiotics. They would overcorrect for any error on my end. Like if Claire spat out the formula or whatever. And then tell you that it only has a 2 week shelf life. There's something fishy about that whole thing. And the fact that the second visit I went to the doctor, they said that the x-rays looked worse, but the breathing sounded better. Yet when I asked her about the hissing sounding weak still, and getting weaker as time went on, the doctor just brushed it off. Mind you, I didn't see the same doctor the second visit. It was a different doctor. So then, you're catching up on all the information with the new doctor, who, even if she does have the same amount of experience as the other doctor, it's, I don't know. That was awful and that was annoying. Then there's an error on my part. There's an innocent error. And just, ignorance based. I got so excited when she finally pooped. And I brought the poop sample in for them. But she pooped at like 10 a.m. And I didn't know how long poop was viable for testing after it left the body. So, with the best intentions, I thought, if I freeze a poop, that will stop the bacterial movement and the viral movements, if there are any in the poop. And they would just come back to life after the poop defrosted. Apparently, frozen poop is not viable poop. And you can, I think she said, you can have poop outside of the body as a viable test subject for up to 6 hours. That is really weird wording. So, that could have painted a much better picture, but I screwed that up, sadly. But at the end of the day, all the research I did was helpful on the surface, but putting it to practice when the time called for it was another thing entirely. It's that whole thing about how research and practice are two very different things, and this proves it immensely. So why did she die? She died due to my actions, my inactions, my ignorance, my inexperience, negligence, and what I have to assume were previously underlying issues I wasn't made well aware of. And as I said, there's just sadly too many variables. But at the end of the day, the issue was she didn't have a fair fight. I was going to use a cliche, but I don't know how it goes. Everything was just not stacked in her favor. It was an uphill battle for her, and she ended up losing it, sadly. So, let's get to the more positive aspect of this podcast. What do I remember of her? Like the things I really loved. There's a lot. I loved when she'd always do this thing, like whenever she was in bed. Sorry. She would always do this thing, like whenever she was under the covers, and you had your foot on the outside of the covers, she would start feeling with her hands. That's always so cute and adorable. And then she would slowly poke out her head to examine what she was feeling. I loved that. I loved when I would have the cage door open and letting her go back and forth as she pleased. She would try to be sneaky and try stealthily climb the bed to where I was and then pounce on me. She's so silly. I loved all her little noises she made.
Sit, be nice. And give her a kiss.
Or when she would suckle, and they do this weird rapid jaw movement when they suckle. Um, it's just I don't know what it is that they're doing. I don't know like if they're trying to get a better grip, but it's just adorable. It was so it always made me happy when she would make that weird rapid jaw movement sound. It never hurt, so that wasn't the issue. I also loved when she finally was getting on solids. This was a week where she started getting on solids and I started introducing them. Um, I loved watching her little mouth move when she ate because I don't know if you ever watched a raccoon eat. They do this cute thing with like where the nose kind of pops up as they push the food back to the molars to crush the food. Um, what else? I loved whenever she would look up at you and you could see the little sliver of white in her eyes. I don't know why, but that always it was such I guess it was such a nice white. It was that weird whitish blue and it was just so soothing and cute. So, yeah. I loved how quickly watching her quickly learn and overcome something. Like I was amazed that by day 2 or 3 of having her, she was starting to come when I called her. Um, and it was just so amazing. Like
Come on, Claire.
she would climb the barrier to the bathroom
Wow.
because it was only about a foot and a half high, maybe 2 feet. Again, more of that measuring issues. I think I'm looking at the planks on this desk right here because I used it to act as like the wood surface for this desk in case I did like arts and crafts on it because I do like building stuff and crafting stuff. And I didn't want to ruin the plastic table underneath. Really high quality stuff. Um, yeah, I think they're about 15 inches wide. Um, and I sadly encouraged her to climb it, which kind of defeats the purpose of a barrier. But she never abused that knowledge, if that makes sense. She respected the visual represent the physical barrier and what it stood for. But when it was time to go to the bathroom, she would easily amble over it. Um, or whatever you want to call that word. So, what else did she used to do? I'm trying to think. Now I'm going off list. um, oh shoot. This is a long one. I am terribly sorry about that. Which, what a great segue. Now for the apologies. I'm sorry that I have to break this news to you and deprive you of the well, not deprive you of the Claire videos, as I'll explain at the end. Um, but I'm sorry that her time was cut short. I'm sorry to Claire for not being attentive enough, for being short with her at times, and letting her die. She deserved better. I know that it was my inactions and my inexperience that killed her in the end. And I can't apologize enough for that because it's just not fair. Though I do want to thank you guys who watch and subscribe to this video. I want to thank Dr. Askew in Mississippi for putting up with my barrage of questions. He was extremely helpful. Those on Facebook that were amazing, like Oreo and Friends, who gave me great advice. I made a great friend out of it. I want to thank everyone on Instagram who just made both accounts explode within a month. Within a month, I had over 200 plus followers, and my one Fox video on Instagram hit almost 1.5 thousand views. That is a weird way of saying that number. And also, it was such a great source of information since I connected with so many other raccoon owners that they gave me great advice. And it was because of that advice that she was able to live as long as she did. It helped me correct my first time mistakes and whatnot. Now we're nearing the end. Let's talk about what's going to happen with this channel. I have a huge back catalog of Claire videos. I'll try posting one every week until I purge it, so I can eternally preserve her memory online and share her with everyone. That's the best thing I can do for her, is to share her with you guys and the knowledge that I gained from this experience, in hopes of helping others out there who decide to go this route. Like with the Claire videos, there's nothing that really needs to be done with them, so I'll just post them as is after I had my watermarks and whatnot. Maybe I'll go back and fix those blank screens in my videos that you see at the end of this stuff, which will not happen at the end of this video because that's just tasteless. In closing, I want to thank Claire for proving to me that I was capable of feeling love, and I hope she knows that I love her and miss her greatly. I'll never forget you, and we'll use our time we had to better me. You taught me so much about me, about a feeling I was afraid I never had or the capability of having. I'm sorry your time was cut short. It was extremely unfair to you. Again, thank you all. Those on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. You guys were super helpful and super encouraging. And it helped me, Claire, and the whole experience out greatly. This was an amazing experience that I will try again, but only when I'm armed with more knowledge, a vet tech license, a real house. Even if it's a tiny ranch, I just want the next animal to have a proper backyard for her or him to explore, which is what she needed, because I could never take her out, because I didn't know where the heck I could take a raccoon out without raising eyebrows and having to deal with authorities and explaining, oh, she's a pet, here's my license, all that horse crap. Which, ironically, when I was burying her, I found the perfect spot. Sorry this had to come so soon to an end, and you couldn't get a proper last episode of her before she died. Due to her increased aggression, I wasn't able to get her to cooperate enough to bring her into my bedroom/office where I filmed this. So sorry for that. I love you and miss you, Claire. I'll never forget you. Until next time, be well.